What if Muggles fought wizards? 3,000 wands against 69 million people. And honestly, the answer to who wins might not be the one you're expecting. The Harry Potter series gives us this beautiful, whimsical wizarding world hidden right beneath our noses. But lurking underneath all that butterbeer and broomsticks is a question the books never fully answer. What would actually happen if the Statute of Secrecy collapsed, the gloves came off, and Muggles and wizards went to war? A full-scale, no-holds-barred conflict between the magical and non-magical worlds. Every weapon on the table, zero rules. We're breaking this down today. The numbers, the weapons, the creatures, the nukes. And the one factor that changes absolutely everything. First, we need to understand why wizards are hiding in the first place, because this is where the story gets really interesting. The International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy wasn't born out of arrogance, it was born out of fear. In the 1600s, witch hunts were intensifying across Europe. Muggle mobs were persecuting wizarding children, trying to force witches and wizards to perform magic for their own purposes, essentially enslaving them, and the burnings were constant. Now, most witches and wizards could handle being caught. There's a French witch called Lisette de Lapin who was sentenced to burning, casually transfigured herself into a rabbit right on the pyre, and hopped away into the woods while the Muggles stood there watching a fire cook absolutely nothing. She lived comfortably in this form for years, only bothering to turn human again when she felt like it. And Lisette wasn't the only one enjoying the spectacle. Wendelin the Weird caught herself caught on purpose at least 47 times, because she genuinely liked the tickling sensation of the flames. But here's the thing people miss: not everyone survived. The monument to the Salem witch trials confirms that a lot of wizards genuinely died. The charm isn't automatic. You have to know it. You have to cast it. And if you're a child or caught off guard or overwhelmed by a mob, you're done. So, in 1669, the wizarding world held heated debates in the Wizengamot about what to do. And this is where it gets fascinating, because two camps emerged. There were the radicals, the militant members who wanted to declare war on Muggles and establish a wizard-led world order. Just conquer everyone. And then there were people like Ralston Potter, yes, an ancestor of Harry, who championed the opposite approach: hide, disappear, go underground. The British Ministry of Magic even tried a middle path first, sending a special delegation to Muggle monarchs William III and Mary II. Essentially begging for legal protection under Muggle law. The monarch said no. That rejection, that final slap in the face, was the last straw. Wizards chose secrecy because they tried asking for help and got turned away. Let that sink in. The wizarding world went into hiding from a position of vulnerability, and that historical context matters enormously for our hypothetical war. Now let's talk numbers, because the population gap is absolutely staggering. J.K. Rowling herself has stated there are approximately 3,000 witches and wizards in the United Kingdom. She also confirmed this number directly, and it's worth sitting with that for a moment. 3,000 against a Muggle population of around 69 million? That's a ratio of roughly one wizard for every 23,000 Muggles. To put that in perspective, magic is rarer than cystic fibrosis, rarer than sickle cell anemia. Being a wizard is, statistically speaking, one of the rarest conditions a human being can have. Globally, estimates put the total wizarding population somewhere between 48,000 and 400,000, depending on how you crunch the numbers. The Quidditch World Cup and Goblet of Fire drew about 100,000 spectators, and given how easy magical transportation is, that likely represents a huge chunk of the entire global wizarding population. Meanwhile, the Muggle world has 8 billion people. China alone fields a standing military of 2 million active personnel. The United States runs 1.3 million troops and the largest defense budget on the planet. Britain's army, just Britain's, carries nearly 80,000 active soldiers with another 28,000 reserves on call. In an open war, Muggles outnumber wizards by a factor of roughly 20,000 to 1. But raw numbers don't tell the whole story, because wizards have something Muggles don't: magic. Let's talk about what wizards bring to the table. And some of it is genuinely terrifying. Start with transportation. Wizards can apparate, literally teleport instantaneously from one location to another. They have the Flu network for instant travel through fireplaces, portkeys, broomsticks, thestrals. In terms of mobility, the wizarding world makes every Muggle military look like it's stuck in quicksand. A wizard strike team could appear inside the Pentagon inside number 10 Downing Street, inside a nuclear submarine, do their damage and vanish before anyone knew what happened. Then there's espionage, and this is where wizards are genuinely overpowered. Memory modification with Obliviate erases evidence of their existence from anyone's mind. Polyjuice Potion lets them impersonate any person on Earth for an hour at a time. Invisibility Cloaks Disillusionment Charms, Legilimency, which is literally reading someone's thoughts. The Imperious Curse gives you complete control over another person's actions. Imagine placing the leader of a country under the Imperious Curse. You don't need to win the war, you just need to control the person who can surrender. Offensively, the Killing Curse Avada Kedavra causes instant death with no physical mark. No armor stops it, no surgery fixes it, you're just dead. A skilled wizard can also conjure explosions, summon fire, transfigure objects into weapons, collapse buildings, and flood entire areas. A single wizard with creativity and no moral compass is essentially a one-person special forces unit. And we haven't even touched magical creatures yet. Dragons can melt through the strongest metal on Earth and absorb incredible punishment. Giants walk through buildings like they're made of paper. The Nundu, which looks like a massive leopard, breathes out diseases powerful enough to wipe out an entire continent without magical intervention. An entire continent from one creature's breath. But the real nightmare? Dementors. These things seemingly cannot be destroyed. They drain peace, hope, and happiness from the air around them. And even Muggles feel their presence, this crushing soul-sucking despair, even though they can't see what's causing it. The only known defense is the Patronus Charm, a spell most trained wizards struggle to master. Muggle soldiers have no defense against Dementors. None. You can't shoot what you can't see, and you can't fight what attacks your soul instead of your body. Unleash a swarm of Dementors in a military base and every soldier there crumbles into a hollow catatonic shell, without a single spell being cast. Then there's the defensive side, which is frankly absurd. The Fidelius Charm can hide an entire building, an entire family, inside a single person's memory, as long as the secret keeper stays quiet. All the surveillance and interrogation in the world won't reveal the location. It simply ceases to exist for anyone who hasn't been told. Muggle intelligence agencies with their spy satellites and ground teams would be scanning empty fields while an entire wizarding community operates 30 feet away. Hogwarts itself is enchanted so that any Muggle who approaches sees a crumbling ruin and a sign of warning of danger, their own brain telling them to turn around. The unplottable charm removes locations from maps entirely. You can't bomb coordinates that don't appear on any coordinate system you have access to. And wizards heal differently. Fawkes the Phoenix sheds tears directly into a fatal basilisk wound and closed it in seconds. Skelligro regrows entire bones overnight. Harry lost every bone in his arm and had a full skeleton back by morning. Madame Pomfrey routinely patches up injuries in the Hogwarts hospital wing that would sideline a Muggle soldier for months of surgery and rehabilitation. A wizard who catches shrapnel on Monday is dueling again by Wednesday. That recovery speed applied across an entire fighting force effectively multiplies their numbers in a long conflict. So, wizards win, right? Case closed. Well, not so fast, because Muggles have some advantages that are genuinely hard to argue against. Start with range. A wand is primarily a close to medium range weapon. Most spell combat in Harry Potter happens at distances you could cross in a few seconds of running. A sniper rifle is accurate at over a mile. A wizard can't shield against what they don't know is coming. And a bullet from a high-powered rifle arrives before the sound does. By the time you hear the shot, you're already dead. No Protego is saving you from that. And here's an uncomfortable fact. Nowhere in canon is a magical shield ever shown definitively defecting a bullet. Shields are shown struggling against far less powerful impacts. The wizarding world simply never developed defenses against modern ballistic weaponry, because they've been hiding from it for 300 years. Wizards have also never trained for real military combat. The closest thing to organized fighting in the books is Dumbledore's army, a group of teenagers practicing disarming charms in a secret room. The Auror program trains dark wizards catchers, essentially magical police equipped for one-on-one duels and criminal investigations. That's wildly different from coordinated military operations involving thousands of personnel, supply chains, air support, and strategic planning across multiple fronts. The Battle of Hogwarts, the single largest magical engagement in modern history, involved maybe a few hundred combatants on both sides. For any modern army, that's a slow Tuesday. Scale that up. Tanks, artillery, fighter jets, cruise missiles, armed drones. A single aircraft carrier holds more firepower than every wizard in Britain combined can probably produce. And Muggles can build more, which is the key advantage: industrial production. Destroy a Muggle tank and they build 10 more. Kill a Muggle soldier and they train 100 replacements within months. Kill a wizard, though, and that wizard is gone. Their knowledge, their power, their decades of magical training irreplaceable. The wizarding world doesn't have a standing army. Both wizarding wars, in the books, were fought by loose organizations of volunteers who knew how to duel. There's no wizarding boot camp, no magical military doctrine. No chain of command beyond Dumbledore says go. The single most devastating argument for the Muggle side? Attrition. Every wizard who slips up gets captured, catches a stray bullet, or gets hit by shrapnel from an explosion they never saw coming. That's a catastrophic loss for the wizarding side, nearly impossible to replace. Muggles can absorb losses that would be extinction-level events for wizards. There's another Muggle advantage that doesn't get discussed enough: information. Modern military intelligence runs on satellite surveillance, thermal imaging, signals interception, drone reconnaissance, and data analysis at a scale wizards genuinely cannot comprehend. The wizarding world still communicates by owl, living, breathing birds that fly at maybe 40 miles per hour and can be intercepted, followed, or shot down by anyone with decent aim. Meanwhile, Muggles transmit encrypted data across the globe in milliseconds. The Order of the Phoenix, the most organized resistance movement in wizarding history, coordinated through a Patronus messaging system that required every member to be skilled enough to cast one. If someone couldn't produce a Patronus, and plenty of adult wizards can't, they were cut off entirely. Compare that to a Muggle squad leader who hands a recruit a radio on day one. That ignorance runs in both directions too. Muggles don't understand magic, sure. Wizards don't understand modern technology either, and technology is what Muggles would be fighting with. Arthur Weasley, one of the Ministry's own experts on Muggle artifacts, couldn't figure out how a rubber duck worked. Most wizards have never seen a television, much less understood radar, sonar, or infrared tracking. They wouldn't recognize a surveillance drone if one hovered 10 feet above their cauldron. Now, we have to address the elephant in the room, or rather, the mushroom cloud. Nuclear weapons. 9 nations possess approximately 12,000 nuclear warheads, with the 2 largest arsenals accounting for roughly 88% of the total. A single modern warhead obliterates everything within miles of the blast site, and radiation poisons the land for generations. These weapons travel at speeds approaching 2,000 miles per hour. Can a wizard stop a nuclear missile? Some fans argue yes. Transfigure it, vanish it, redirect it. But that requires a wizard to know it's coming, react in time, and cast the spell powerful enough to affect an object moving at Mach 2.5. That's a tall order for anyone who isn't Dumbledore. Now here's the real reason nukes probably don't factor in the way you'd think, though. Wizards live among Muggles. Diagon Alley sits in central London. The Ministry of Magic is literally underneath London. Hogsmeade is the only all-wizarding settlement in Britain. You can't nuke wizards without nuking your own cities, your own people, your own infrastructure. No government drops a nuclear weapon on London hoping to maybe hit some wizards. The collateral damage makes it unthinkable. So, nukes are effectively off the table, which actually helps the wizarding world significantly. But taking nukes off the table doesn't leave Muggles unarmed. Modern conventional weapons are devastating enough on their own. Thermobaric bombs create pressure waves that destroy everything within a blast radius and suck the oxygen out of enclosed spaces. Imagine one detonated above the entrance to Diagon Alley. Precision-guided munitions can hit a specific window from 50 miles away. Chemical agents like nerve gas are invisible, odorless, and kill within minutes of skin contact. A wizard would need to know what sarin is before they could conjure a defense, and most wizards don't even know what electricity is. The protective enchantments around Hogwarts held against Death Eater spells and giants for hours during the Battle of Hogwarts. Impressive by magical standards. Modern artillery fires continuously for days. Whether ancient wards designed to repel magical attacks could withstand repeated strikes from weapons that operate on entirely different physical principles is a question no wizard has ever had to answer, and the first time they'd find out would be the worst possible moment to learn. Now this is where it gets really interesting, because we have a historical precedent for what happens when wizards try to dominate Muggles. His name was Gellert Grindelwald. In the aftermath of World War I, Grindelwald emerged preaching wizard dominance, arguing that the barbaric actions of Muggles during the war could have been prevented if wizards had been in charge. His slogan, "For the greater good," was carved above the entrance to Nurmengard, the prison he built for his opponents. As we see in the Fantastic Beasts films, this wasn't a fringe ideology confirmed to dusty pamphlets. Grindelwald actively recruited across the global wizarding community, and the moment grew terrifyingly fast. A young Albus Dumbledore, brilliant and infatuated, bought into it completely, writing to Grindelwald, "Your point about wizard dominance being for the Muggles' own good, this, I think, is the crucial point. Yes, we have been given power, and yes, that power gives us the right to rule. But it also gives us responsibilities over the ruled." Dumbledore eventually came to his senses. Grindelwald didn't. He launched a global wizarding war that raged through the 1920s, 30s, and into the 1940s, running parallel to World War II. And here's the thing, Grindelwald lost. Even with all his power, even wielding the Elder Wand, the most powerful of the three Deathly Hallows, he was defeated. The Wizarding Revolution failed. The Statute of Secrecy remained intact. And if Grindelwald's war wasn't sobering enough, consider what came after. Voldemort. Lord Voldemort's wars, both of them, were civil conflicts fought almost entirely within the wizarding world itself. He didn't even try to openly conquer Muggles. He focused on subjugating other wizards first. That tells you something. Even the darkest wizard of the modern age understood that an outright war with the Muggle world was not the opening move. Some fans have proposed a more radical theory, that there was an ancient war between wizards and Muggles that the Muggles actually won, that the Ministry of Magic was actually imposed on wizards by Muggles as a mechanism of control. That's why all spells must be registered, why animagi are tracked, why powerful artifacts like time turners are locked away. It's a leash disguised as self-governance. Unconfirmed, but chillingly plausible. Speaking of time turners, some fans bring up those as potential game changers, but that ship has sailed. The entire Ministry stock of time turners was destroyed during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries in Harry's 5th year. Even when they existed, their use was restricted to going back a maximum of 5 hours, and the risks of paradox were severe enough that the Ministry kept them locked in a high-security vault. Time travel as a military strategy is functionally extinct. And there's one more factor that rarely comes up in these debates. Wizarding infrastructure is shockingly centralized. Britain's entire magical government operates from a single underground complex beneath London. One building. Every magical child in the country attends one school. One. The primary shopping district is a single hidden street. The only all-wizard settlement is one village in Scotland. Muggle governments distribute critical functions across dozens of hardened facilities specifically because they learn through centuries of warfare that concentrated targets get destroyed. The wizarding world never learned that lesson because they never had to fight a modern war. Knock out the Ministry, siege Hogwarts, and collapse the entrance to Diagon Alley, and magical Britain is effectively decapitated in 3 moves. So, who actually wins? The honest answer is that it depends entirely on how the war is fought. In an open conventional war, armies on a battlefield, tanks versus wands, Muggles win. It's not close. The numbers gap is too vast, the firepower too overwhelming, and wizard casualties would be devastating and irreplaceable. You could be the greatest wizard alive and still not Protego your way through a carpet-bombing campaign you never saw coming. But wizards would never fight that war. They're not stupid. They'd fight a shadow war, infiltration, sabotage, and mind control. They'd place imperious curses on military leaders, obliviate intelligence officers, apparate into weapons depots, and destroy them from the inside. They'd unleash dementors on population centers and watch the world spiral into despair, without anyone understanding why. They'd use Polyjuice Potion to become the very generals trying to fight them. And Muggles can't counter what they can't perceive. You can't develop anti-magic technology if you don't know magic exists. You can't defend your leaders from Imperius if you've never heard of it. You can't protect your soldiers from Dementors they literally cannot see. The real answer, the one J.K. Rowling embedded into the very fabric of the series, is this. The smartest wizards always knew that open war with Muggles was unwinnable, because there are simply too many of them, and they're too resourceful, too adaptive, and too relentless. Muggles went from horses and swords to nuclear weapons in about 500 years. Wizards in that same period still using quills and parchment. Rowling noted that wizards kept pace with Muggle technology for most of human history. Then the Industrial Revolution happened and the gap has been widening ever since. The wizarding world chose secrecy because the alternative was extinction. Plain simple, total extinction. And maybe that's the most profound thing the Harry Potter series ever taught us, that true power is knowing when to fight and when to disappear. The wizards looked at the Muggle world, did the math, and chose survival over supremacy. Ralston Potter was right. Grindelwald was wrong. And if the Statute of Secrecy ever falls, the wizards better hope they have a really, really good plan B. So yeah, all that Muggle military tech has to be good for something, which brings us to the real question. Can Voldemort survive a headshot? That's your next lesson here at Stickman Hogwarts. Click before he splits his soul again and makes this even harder to answer.